Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Well, hello. Welcome back to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education with Jerri and Jamie. We're so happy that you are here. So, Jerri, I started teaching in the 90s. You started teaching in the 80s. It was so exciting to get that offer, to get that job. There was such competition back then. And it was so exciting, so rewarding. I really, really enjoyed it. But things are different now. When you think about what we are typically grouped with, right? It's lawyers, teachers, doctors, but we don't have that elevated status that doctors and lawyers have. And why not? I feel like it's so much different even now than it was back then.
Right. I agree. And the pandemic has changed things too. Many people have dropped out of education and have pursued another occupation. And I hope the pandemic showed people how important teachers are. But today, our guest is talking about this very topic. Dr. Rose Chu is here because she's on a mission to elevate teachers and to help us to think of them in a better light and to just elevate the entire profession. I love this idea. And Jamie, Rose just stepped off a stage not very long ago from giving a keynote and dropped in to do a podcast. So she is a busy lady. So welcome to the Linked Up podcast, Rose.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
We are thrilled to have you with us today. Before we begin, tell us, what was your topic of your keynote today?
Well, it really is about this project that I've been working on called Elevate Teaching. We are starting it in Minnesota. And I'm of course, I work with a team of people, but my team would say that I'm kind of the visionary behind it. And I've been talking about this for a long time, actually. The idea that there is a way that we talk about teaching in the public narrative that I've experienced over and over and over and over again, and it doesn't seem to have changed. And so I'm on a mission to really transform that public narrative so that the teaching profession should be as respected, honored, and prestigious as it should be.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Was there something that made you come to this mission? How did you get here?
Yeah, I'm a longtime educator. I actually came to education by way of a career change. I actually have my PhD in industrial and system engineering. And my personal story is that when I decided to go into teaching, because my calling got too big, I was volunteering and I'm just like, I got to give it a shot. If I don't, I would never know if this is what I want to do. So when I share this with everybody around me, not, not a single person thought it was a good idea. It's almost as if I was discouraged from doing it for many reasons. And some actually would say, "Oh, why are you, well, you should be able to walk into teaching because you already have your PhD." I go, well, I have a PhD in engineering. Doesn't mean that I can just walk into a school. So there's a lot of those narratives that has persisted even till today. Another one I would say is that, bless her heart, my late mom, she became a teacher in her life because she had no other choices. So when I decided to change career, she literally asked me in Chinese, no less. So you could be doing anything you want as a woman. And why are you just choosing teaching? Okay. And then when I was teaching at the university level and I was preparing the next generation of teachers as a teacher educator in the faculty, I constantly hear my students when I praise them and say, wow, you guys are doing really great. The discussions have been wonderful. Many of them will come up to me and say, well, I'm glad you think so, except that my family and friends always say, if you are doing so well in school and your GPA is so high, why are you just choosing to be a teacher?
Right.
And I have to say, okay, 30 years later, okay, those narrative has persisted. And when I talked to a colleague recently, he actually said this, and I realized that is the moment I go, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I say, I've collected a lot of things where people tell me about, teaching and why you shouldn't be in it, and all the ways that we shouldn't, that people are questioning why somebody decide to be a teacher. And he said, oh, we've been hearing that for years. It's been like that forever. And I said, and you are okay with that? Well, guess what, Jerry and Jamie? I am not okay with
No,
that
you're
anymore.
Good
not.
for you. Good
Okay?
for you.
I truly believe system change from everything I've learned and everything I've studied includes narrative shifts. If you think about movements to change anything, it is so much about changing the narrative that is so to be something that is more future looking, that is more about the impact. Okay. And that's what I'm trying to do in Elevate Teaching. It is not a temporary campaign, but it is a movement to change the way we talk about, view, and relate to the teaching profession, to include the tremendous impact that the profession is having in our society and in the world for that matter. And we somehow have sort of forgotten that in a lot of ways.
And I think it's really about that impact, as you say. I mean, there is no greater impact than what a teacher can have on students. Impact on not just students, but the path of the world, the path of our future. I mean, that is the impact that we can have as teachers. And there is no more elevated position than that. But how do you change the narrative? As you said, it's not a temporary campaign, but it's about changing the narrative. What are some of your tactics for doing that?
Yeah, so one of the ways when so just so that you know, the first phase of Elevate Teaching, we were fortunate to be funded by some state appropriation in Minnesota. And when we got together, a group of us got together and say, so how do we approach this? Okay. I have actually people who say, uh, a little bit later, like, okay, you got the money. Where's the billboard? Where are the TV ads? So they are thinking of marketing in a way that is more like, well, where are those messages to make sure that people come into teaching and all that? And the way we did it was to say, before we do that, we got to understand what are those messages that are out there that we need to flip them or at least have a more nuanced understanding. So the way we approach it is almost, kind of really from a collective impact idea, from a network idea, from an idea of system change, where it is about relationships and it's about changing the power dynamics. So we work on talking to multiple stakeholders, students, teachers, parents, teacher educators, many community members to say, okay, we're going to give you space to talk about how teachers have impacted your life. And I tell them this space, I don't call them focus groups because this is their time to, to talk about the profession. So whether you're a teacher or you're a student or you've been impacted by teaching or you yourself have memories that you never forgot, share them. And they really appreciated that, right? When was the last time you sat around? It's kind of like, wow, it's been a long time. I think about somebody who impacted me the way they did. Okay. And then we talk about, so what do you think are the issues and challenges that have a profession that have such impact and yet young people are not choosing to go into? There are lots of data, right? The teacher education programs have lower enrollment. Over time, less and less people are going into teaching. So what do you think are some of those challenges from those various perspectives? And then the last thing we talk about in those sessions is also to say, what do you think some of the solutions might be if it is a marketing campaign, if it is a campaign to attract more people into the profession? So though that approach led us to the 6 key messages that are more publicly accessible. And you could see them on the billboards eventually. You could see them on T-shirts eventually. And we actually have a message kit that become a gorgeously done kit with art that is commissioned, so that when you look at it, it is just beautiful in terms of what the teaching profession. It's almost a brand. It's almost a way to brand our teaching profession.
Yes. Well, I'm very interested in what are some of the reasons that you found that people are not going into teaching?
Well, if you think about those who are considering and those who think they want to, but they end up not doing that, a lot of what they say has to do with the perceptions. They are discouraged. Okay. So their advisors and their influencers in their lives include parents, include their teachers, include counselors, include what they're hearing out in the media, okay, are all discouraging their path to teaching. Okay. And then there are those who are interested, but then when they start looking into that, oftentimes they don't even know where to start. Because teaching as a profession, oftentimes you don't actually even know that it's so complicated. It is a very complicated profession in terms of licensure, in terms of preparation, in terms of all the ways that you need to understand the world of education, right? So if you are not ready yet to pay a lot of money to teacher preparation program, you sometimes kind of go, okay, I went on this website from the Department of Ed. Oh my God, it only got me more confused. I don't want to do it. Or maybe I'm hearing all sorts of things and people get cold feet and they don't do it. Okay. So if I think about those who really would like to do it, there are so many that we almost don't do a good job getting them from wanting to be a teacher and supporting them to actually become one. And then once they become one, how do we make sure that they stay like connected to their why and that they stay connected with a support system, right? Teaching can be lonely, but it shouldn't be, right? It shouldn't be. And that's one of the message that has come up. And when you're ready, I would love to share what those 6 messages are. It went through a lot of vetting. We have over probably 700 people who vetted through this, and we have gone through many groups where we do group work around it, and we have gotten a lot of feedback. Given that we don't have very nuanced conversation about teaching profession, the 6 messages we have right now are very publicly accessible.
Yes. And I want to get to those, but I wanted to just say something to something that you said a few minutes ago. You talked about how complicated it is. And one of the things I wanted to say is I was in education for 38 years. My daughter was going on her honeymoon and needed a substitute. My license had expired. So I wanted to sub for her. So I had to go back in and maneuver that system. Now, I did this for 38 years. It was complicated. I had a difficult time. Also, I want to say that it cost me quite a bit of money because I had FBI checks. I had to have a physical, a tuberculosis test, all of those things, which are all necessary. I get that. But those are all hurdles. Having been in this system for 38 years, it was still difficult. There were still hurdles to overcome. And many times I thought, is this worth it? Is this really worth it? Yes. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
So one of the approach in Elevate Teaching is not only to make sure that there is a movement to change how we see the profession, to get people excited to come into the profession, but it's also to say, okay, I got you. Now I'm interested. What do we do now? How do we provide that system of support to help people bridge the interest to actually becoming a teacher? That is a big one. I have talked to, at least in Minnesota, I've talked to so many people that say, "Oh, I've always been interested, but the more I look into that, I just never pursue it." And you think about how, oh my goodness, there are so many people who are interested and never have that bridge strategies, right? The bridging part, we call it bridging. And so we've been thinking a lot about how in the next phase of the work, if we get the funding, is to really think about what is needed for that bridging. We started talking to some folks who do this kind of like helping people navigate. And because the project that I'm doing is also about diversifying the teaching profession, because we know that that's good for every student, um, there is a part is also about demystifying the process, right? So it's about elevating the profession to the prestige that it deserves. It's about demystifying the profession, not deprofessionalizing it, but demystifying the processes, the information, what is needed, okay, in a way that is much more um, palatable, right? More accessible, right? And and then and then it is also about diversifying. So those are the three terms I use a lot in the way that I think about the work that I do that I'm very passionate about. Elevating, demystifying, and um, diversifying. Thank you. I just said it, didn't I? Yeah. Those three terms, to me, if we are to strengthen a profession for years to come, we got to pay attention to all three at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. So that leads us into what are those 6 messages to make this all happen?
Yeah. So just so that you know, when we did this project, we went through a qualitative analysis with all the things that we harvested. So much data. There was so much data from virtual convenings that are big, from small convenings that are smaller. So we got a lot of data of what people say that kind of was a positive, what people say that were the negative, and some of the solutions they have. And then we gave all this to a branding company or a communications company. And I have to say that a tutorial manager basically came back to us with a framework. And he said, first of all, if it is going to be publicly accessible, and if it's about sort of rebranding, we got to use simple language. We got to be able to see this on billboards. We got to be able to see this or listen to this in radio ads. We got to be able to see this on t-shirts. It got to be accessible in a way that anybody who look it up is like, wow, we get this. All right. So ready? Drum roll.
Yes.
I love this. We'll see what you think. Teaching is creative.
Oh, I love
Yes.
that.
Teaching is legacy. Teaching is teamwork. Teaching is community building. Teaching is opportunity. Teaching is evolving.
Evolving.
And for each of the message, we have 3 paragraphs or 4 paragraphs of very publicly accessible language to describe that. Right? If you know that, right? For teaching is creative, we often hear people say, teachers have no autonomy. They have to do everything that the standards tell them, or the school tell them, or the principal tell them, or the legislator tell them, because they are the standards. And I always say, yes, and. You're going to hear a lot of that. Yes, and. Just as doctors, construction workers, electricians have to follow standards, right? Because you're talking about people's lives, people's houses, the electricity. Here we're talking about students' lives. Those are necessary. And yet, if you were to give the same lesson to 10 teachers, 20 teachers, that lesson will show up differently because it's a different expression from a different teacher. That's the creativity. Okay. It's just one part of it, right? Teaching is legacy. I have to say, when we finally came to this word and we share this with a lot of people, especially teachers, some of them actually say, you know what? I have not thought of it in that terms, but you're absolutely right. That should be our why, right? Because the legacy of what teachers do is forever. Some of us still remember our teachers, good and bad and everything in between. And there are teachers that we don't like, that actually got us, like, put a lid under our fire, and we're going to prove them wrong.
That's right. Exactly.
I have those. Okay.
Right.
And we have those who have maybe traumatized us, that got us stronger. I'm not asking people to experience that on purpose, but all I'm saying is that the impact of teachers are lifelong, are forever. That's what legacy is, right? And teachers lead to other professions. Every profession started with a teacher in some ways or form. And teaching is teamwork. It's very important, just so that you know. We have teachers who say, please do not use the word hero anywhere when you talk about the teaching profession, because it makes them feel guilty that they cannot do everything. It makes them feel as if that if they miss something, they feel guilty that they are doing that. So teachers are telling us, do not use the word hero. In fact, many of them say, many of us are staying in the profession because I got a great team. Whether it's grade level team, whether it's a content team, or I have a great team or great support system outside of my school day, right? So it is teamwork. I would like the teachers feel free to say, I have my daughter's birthday tonight. This community meeting, I really cannot attend. Would somebody please cover for me? And I want to know everything that happens. Wouldn't it be amazing when teachers feel like they can take care of their life while also giving their life to education? That is a both end, right? It's a both end. And teaching is community building, partly because you cannot, yeah. I mean, you have to have community to support you. You have teachers who are really great, effective teachers who bring in the community to the classroom or take the students to the community. We are part of the community.
So Rose, you really brought up a good point and made me remember something and just brought a smile to my face. I think some of the most memorable parts of teaching was the network that I built, that we built right? We were a team of teachers. We had, different committees. I still meet with, talk with the people who I started teaching with my very first couple of years. So I really think that building that network, as you mentioned earlier, is really so, so important.
Oftentimes, if you think about a teacher thinking about their profession, besides the fact that we love our students, right? We want to do right by our students. It's oftentimes about the projects they do with a team of teachers or educators, or the network that they built because of some affinity group or a professional association. So the idea of teamwork and community building are connected, right? One is more internal and one is more external, but it's more about us feeling this sense of belonging, the sense that we are part of something bigger. And the sense of belonging is very important for retention. Oftentimes, when a teacher does not stay in a place, if you really have the conversation with them, it is not because of the students. It is about the sense that they don't belong there for whatever reason, right? Or they don't feel the support. They feel like they don't feel like they are part of the community. So the idea that teaching is very much about teamwork and very much about community building has to be in the narrative of how we talk about teaching. Yeah. Yeah. And then the last two I'll finish is teaching is opportunity. The idea that no matter how much AI we're going to have and how much technology we have, I truly believe the role of teachers may change. The curriculum will evolve with time, but the role of teachers in the importance of developing the citizenry of our country and of our democracy will never go away. In fact, it becomes more important when information is so easily accessible by our students, right? It is even more important that we have a teacher who can guide and facilitate that critical thinking to navigate all the information that is out there in the world. Yeah. So to me, the opportunity, and also opportunity, another way to look at it is also the fact that you think about a teacher is so much more than being in the classroom. A teacher learns about communication, learns to fundraise. We used to organize community events. So Jamie, that's where you were talking about those memorable things, right? Where we created a parent event or something where parents came together. And those are skills that we picked up along the way as a teacher. As a teacher leader, you learn all about curriculum. Like, oh, now I understand about adoption. I learned so much about curriculum adoption, right? Or understand about legislation. So there's so many opportunities as a teacher that is beyond what traditionally people think about when you think about a teacher. And then finally, any profession that is truly a profession will evolve over time. I do not want a nurse to treat me like somebody was treated 50 years ago. I want the latest and the greatest, right? I want research about what is the latest and greatest if I'm going to be a patient in a hospital. We want that for our profession too. So some say that some of these messages are aspirational, but guess what? We absolutely should be aspiring to what the profession should be, and think about how do we live into those messages. Not every moment, but over time, we could say those 6 things really capture a little bit more nuance about the teaching profession.
Yes. I wonder too, do you look for teachers that are like cheerleaders for the profession to be out there as spokespeople for you as well?
Yeah. So as I say, a movement is about people who really believe that they could be part of the solution and that we have a vision moving forward. Okay. And part of this project is very much about the next generation, because we know that young people are not going into teaching, or college students are not choosing that major. Okay. So how do we change that narrative? The other side of the coin is to say, what would it look like for our teachers to feel the power they do have, even while we have a lot of structural issues that we need to fix? It's a both and again. It's a yes and again. Yes, we need principles to create the conditions for these 6 messages to live out, right? But we also need our own teachers to remind ourselves, wow, teaching can be creative, even if it's a tiny moment. It could be a moment where I just needed our students to get up and walk around while they're talking to each other, right? It could be it could be simple. It could be simple. And remember our legacy, right? That teaching is teamwork. Like, you don't have to do this alone, right? That you need to seek the community support. And the fact is that you have so many opportunities to be the best that you can be for the sake of our students, for our families, and for education. And finally, if we make mistakes, we are lifelong learners, because we are in a profession. We are professionals. Okay. Right. So we do want teachers to, like, imagine in every teacher, this is a gift, and they kind of go, wow, this is a beautiful gift that I want to remind myself as to why I came into teaching to start with. So it's a yes and for me, right? You're going to have teachers who are burnout and they don't really want to do this anymore. And I want to give, they should have the freedom to make those decisions. But there are other teachers, what they needed is a boost. What they needed is a more nuanced ways to talk about what is going on with them. And then they realized that I actually love my job, except for those places where I don't. Well, let's think about, how do we do it? How do we support you to be better? So this is where mentoring comes in, right? This is where the how a district create procedures and support system, how a principal create the environment for our teachers to thrive. How does the community talk about them? So many of the conversation I had, the perception of the teaching profession came up again and again and again and again. How people perceive them, makes a difference.
Yeah, how they're perceived. That's an ongoing, I think, really big challenge as well. It's hard when people only have the context of when they were teaching, and I mean when they were a student, and not really knowing what actually is involved with the teaching. I kind of love how these pillars, these keys, start with creative and end with evolving, as I think that's sort of like a full circle, right? Because that evolution of education is so creative. And think of AI now and the world that we are going to be moving into, and how we can leverage that for even more creativity. So I love how it kind of comes full circle there.
Thank you. As I said, these messages came from lots of people's input. Lots, oh my goodness, hundreds of people. And in the next phase of our work, what we would love to do, well, let me back up here. So in this current phase that we sort of ended, in between, right now, we created that kit that people can order online. And that kit, even though it is have a few sentences about Minnesota, most of the storyline, I call it the storyline to rebrand our teaching profession is accessible to anyone across the nation. And actually, it is in my vision that I'll be doing this work for the rest of my life, to make sure that we have more and more people who could actually be champions, whether they are teaching or not. right? As a parent. Okay, I actually have this story. I have a parent who told me after I shared this project with her, she stopped me on the phone. She said, Rose, I got to stop you. I say, why? I have to apologize. And I say, what do you have to apologize for? She go, well, I'm going to have to tell you this. Now I know not to do it again. I already told my 8-year-old son not to become a teacher. 8 years old. Okay. And she says, now I realize, and she's a person of color. And she says, I realize that really is not helping anybody. And that's not actually helping my own community. Now, guess what? She is one of the champions. She spoke at one of our events. Okay. So this is what we are trying to do, is that with that framework of the 6 message and a beautifully done kit, you could use it with group exercise, with students, with parents, with business leaders, which I did. I did a business leader presentation and activity for, I think there were like 45 business leaders in the Minnesota Twin City area. And they were like, wow, I don't know when was the last time we actually talked about the teaching profession and the fact that you are telling us we can do something about it by changing how we talk about it. So they all got the kit. They all got the kit. Yeah. So we have talked to many, many people and we want to continue to spread. We distributed 1,000 kits and we are on the quest to distribute the next 2,000.
And how can someone get a kit?
Yeah. So you can go to www.elevateteaching.us, www.elevateteaching.us, and there is right on the top of the banner, it says something about order a message kit right here. Okay. Now, when people are from Minnesota, because the kits were developed with Minnesota funding, we distribute the first 1,000 for free. Right now, we'll still give it to people, but we would say if you're going to order a lot, we would love the people contact us and maybe we can think about, because it costs about like $5 to print this because it's beautifully done. And to sustain this movement, we do want to make sure we can think about how can people donate into the movement. But again, if people can't do it, we'll figure out funds, right? We'll find funds to do it. And that's what we've been doing. We've been looking for funds to make sure that those who cannot buy it can actually still have a copy. And eventually, maybe the second edition of it will take out the Minnesota reference and make it more general. But as I say, even as it is, we brought 100 kits that ASCD bought for this conference that I'm at right now, and we ran out. Yeah, there are a lot of interest. I think people are very interested in something different for the profession, something beautiful, something with a framework that we can start conversations with, right? Start some conversations about the profession.
Yeah. 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 And it reminds me of, of course we have Teacher Appreciation Week, right? It shouldn't just be a week, right? It should be always, always. So I think this mission that you're on is really helping to make that a reality.
Thank you. And usually when people order a kit, in the letter I talk about how, first of all, thank you for being a champion for the teaching profession. Anybody can be a champion. Okay. And then we also talk about what are the ways that you can start conversations. Like you start the conversation with a group of students and say, when you think about teaching, what do you think about? And so we've done a lot of group work where station 1 is teaching is creative. Have you observed a teacher being creative, or have you yourself been creative, doing something? Or how might this be something that could attract someone who really loves trying different things and don't like a job that is the same? Like I always tell people, right? Teaching, one of the reasons I loved it when I was teaching is that there's not the same day twice, right? It's not the same day twice. It's
Yeah.
not the same lesson twice, even if it is the
No.
exact same standards that I'm teaching.
And it's never boring.
It's never boring, right? So we've done those kind of things. So it could be principals talking about what they can do to support that. It could be a professional development in a staff meeting, right? In a faculty meeting. It could be to teacher candidates who are saying, "Oh, this helped me talk to my parents and my family about why I'm in teaching." I actually have some young people who say, "I would love to have these kids because I need to explain to my parents why I'm in the future educator club because they are not encouraged, right?" So many students talk about how, yeah, I often have to make a case and defend as to why I in the future educator club. And so they say this will help me. And imagine if more parents also understand these messages, they realize that, okay, even as I'm having some issues, I should not discourage a kid who really wants to do it, right? It's a yes and. We got things we need to fix, and we need to disrupt the conversation that we are having right now so that we are a little bit more balanced, right? We are a little bit more balanced in the conversations that we are.
To be a champion.
Well, Rose, this has been a delightful conversation, and I love the mission that you're on, and I'm glad you're leading this. This is something that we need. Our country needs it.
Oh, thank you. I apologize if I talk too much because this is like a passion of mine.
No, we can tell. And that's why you're here.
It is. You're the perfect one to pave the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would love that people sign up on the website to maybe get newsletters so you get to understand what else is going on. We usually have a lot of different activities going on. There's also a resource page with lots of stories about some of them are tear jerkers as to why someone became a teacher. So it is a space to really interrupt and lift up, interrupt the narrative out there and lift up the voices of what teaching can be and should be.
Yes. Oh, and you are doing both. You're interrupting and lifting up.
Love it. Love it. Now, are you on social media also?
Yeah, we are. And if you go on we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, and I think on the website, all those things, all those icons are on the website that people can click on. Yeah, and Elevate Teaching. I think if you do a hashtag Elevate Teaching, you'll find. I think there might be a couple of Elevate Teaching, but there's the Elevate Teaching with the rocket icon that is very distinct. Yeah, very distinct. So yeah. Mhm.
Great. And we'll have this information.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rose.
I hope this is useful to your listeners and that we have something to think about and celebrate this amazing profession and really elevate this profession to the level to the prestige that it deserves.
Very good. And we will include all of this in the show notes as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think my contact information is on the website too. And so it's very easy to find. So going to the website is probably the easiest thing, www.elevateteaching.us.
And hopefully we can help to create more champions.
And stay tuned. We have more exciting things coming.
Oh, good. Good. More things coming. We love it, Rose. Thank you so much.
You might have to invite me back for a phase 2 when we're going to start having merch and
Oh, we would love it. We would love that.
billboards and TV ads and maybe maybe radio ads and all that.
That's a good idea. We will.
Absolutely. That's great. We hope to see billboards and everything soon.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.